One. All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. I hope you're all having a good day, and hopefully you can hear us. Let us know in the chat right now if you can't hear us. We're testing out this microphone right now live.
We
But
should see the levels though.
oh yeah,
Even
there we go.
okay, great.
You should be hearing us. Okay, cool. Yeah, welcome into this live Q&A, everybody. Hopefully you had a great week and a great weekend last weekend. So if you're new here, we are going to answer your questions about selling on Amazon. So feel free right now to drop any question you have about Amazon down in live chat. We typically start with the pre-submitted questions from last week's videos, which comes in the form of the comments on last week's video. So yeah, if you were here last week and you wrote a comment here, it's typically where we start. However, I didn't have enough time this morning to put them into a slide deck like we usually do. So we're just going to answer your questions live. Hopefully we get to all of your questions, but feel free now to, like I said, drop your questions in the live chat below.
All right, looks like we've got a few. I think there's like a couple of questions already
Nice.
that we can get started with.
Let's do that. Do you want to start with this guy? This one right here?
Yeah.
All right. So the first question we have is, what is the most effective way of product hunting or product research? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, probably definitely using a tool like Jungle Scout is going to make it a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely want to utilize data in order to make that decision. And by that, I mean some of the key things, and there are more, but some of the things you're looking for, you want to make sure that that product is high in demand. You want to also understand the profitability. So how much can you sell this product at? How much can you buy this product for? And then when you take away all of the big fees, how much is left over? Essentially your profitability. So you need to understand those numbers. Pretty much just like there's a lot of math involved. It's like there's a lot of crunching the numbers and making sure that it is a good opportunity based off of those. There's so many things that you could talk about. That's a very, very broad question. I'd recommend watching like a lot of our product research videos that we have on our channel. That's going to go a lot more in depth. It's not something I can kind of like answer in a minute or so here. But yeah, following data is probably like the main thing I'd suggest at this point.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out one of our good playlists here. It's the how to find a product on Amazon. If you just click here,
Nice.
Yeah, you'll see all these videos in the playlist. We even did some live product research sessions last year and 2 years ago too. So if you want to see like kind of what goes on in our minds, at least when we're doing product research live, I think those are really good videos. You know, see them here with the distinctive thumbnails. But this whole playlist really will give you a ton of information. And then the $1 million case study as well, where you can see us launching a product on Amazon. It's almost like a reality show for Amazon sellers. That's another good playlist that you should check out in your spare time. But yeah, I think you basically covered all the most important things at the highest level.
Cool.
So move on to the next question. And if you're just now joining, make sure to drop all your questions in the live chat. Lenny and I will be here for the next hour or so. And we're excited to, see a lot of familiar faces and answer a lot of questions here. So our next question from Global Politico is, hello guys, I've got a product with 4 listings, one for each color. If someone buys 3 colors, would they be able to leave 1 review or 3?
I believe it's probably 1.
Yeah, just 1 review on the product. And typically Amazon has will show, I don't know if this differs by category or not, but on the review, it will tell the customers that are looking at the reviews which variation that is. I actually don't know how they deal with someone that buys 3 of them, but it should just be 1 review on the listing. Unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to leave 3 reviews. Or maybe that's a good thing, because if they were bad reviews, and you get 3 bad reviews. But
yeah,
just 1 review per purchase, essentially.
Just to add on to that, if you're wondering about, like if you're asking that because you're wondering about trying to maximize getting all of those reviews, like is it better to have all of your variations on 1 listing versus multiple listings? If you were wondering about that, I would say there's a lot more advantages to having all of your variations, color, size, etc. I think especially if it's like size and color.
Yeah.
I would say it's definitely more advantageous to have all of those under the 1 listing. The big thing being that you're pooling all of your review numbers rather than having them, like 20 reviews on this one, 20 and 20. You could have 60 on 1 listing, and you're really bolstering that number and the helping protect your average star rating as well. So yeah, if that was something that you're wondering about, it's still more advantageous to do it this way and have it all on one listing, even though in some situations like this, if people buy multiple units, they can't leave multiple reviews.
Yeah, great question. All right, moving on to our next question. What is a good strategy for PPC?
I feel like it's a good question for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good strategies. It really just depends on your situation, whether you're just starting launching a product, so it's the first PPC campaigns you'll build, or just, if you're trying to increase your ACOS, or maybe you're actually trying to gain more market share in your category, and you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of profitability or ACOS in order to do that. And typically, advertising is the best way of doing that. So it really depends on your scenario, but I'm going to come at this from like a holistic view. The best strategy for PPC, in my opinion, is to create campaigns in what's called a one-to-one format. What that means is one ASIN per campaign, and ideally you have one targeting strategy per campaign. And what that means, to break it down, is let's say you have 3 products. In one campaign, you're just going to advertise one of those products. And let's say you're doing in a manual campaign where you're targeting keywords, right? That would mean you only target exact match keywords, so one targeting strategy. So you grab a couple keywords that you want to target, your most important keywords, and you put them into exact match. Then you create another campaign, again, a manual targeting campaign, but you do it in phrase and broad. I like to group phrase and broad together because they're sort of similar. They basically fish for keywords that are similar to what you're bidding on, but they have something added either before, in between, or after. But then another strategy would be in the third campaign, you add one product, but then you do product targeting. So you're actually targeting ASINs on like a detail page. And you can do another campaign. I'm just going to do a couple more examples here, but you do another campaign where you target categories. You do another campaign, but you do an automatic campaign. But as you know, there's 4 different targeting types in an automatic campaign. Let me pull this up actually. And we actually have a good example of this here. This is a campaign, as the name will suggest. It's a sponsored product campaign. It's an automatic campaign, and the targeting strategy, the one targeting strategy, is substitutes. And so what that looks like here is if we go to substitutes, our ad group, and go into targeting, out of the 4 different targeting options, we only have substitutes enabled. And so what this is doing is fishing for products. It's an automatic campaign that's targeting the detail pages of our competitors, but it's in an automatic fashion. So it's like we're not actually choosing them. And then essentially what this one-to-one campaign format means is we have a campaign that only targets close match, and we have a separate campaign that only does loose match. And then I've never really had luck with compliments, but it depends on your products. So I don't personally have this campaign going for our products here, but that would be another version of a campaign. So all that to say is, in my opinion, the best strategy is to have one campaign and one targeting type into one campaign. Sometimes we go as far as having one keyword in that campaign. And I'd only really recommend that if that's a very, very important long tail keyword for you. And so for us, that's a phrase like washable pee pads for dogs. It perfectly describes our product. And when you look that up on Amazon, you get back competitors that are just like us in terms of price and functionality. And so we've identified that keyword as like a must rank for keyword. Like we must be on page 1 for it, and ideally, obviously, in the top 5 or top 10. And so we actually have that keyword in its own campaign. And we have a full video on this. I'll try to get to it real quick that I would love for you to watch afterwards. I feel like I recommend this in every video live session, but it's still helpful. Is this one here. Do this to find long tail keywords for Amazon PPC, and then outrank your competitors using this 3-step method. If you watch these 2 videos together, you'll kind of see a little bit more of what I'm talking about and how you can apply that to your Amazon business. But hopefully that answers your question. At least, that's my PPC strategy, is to get really granular with your campaigns and your targeting. Yeah, great question. Moving on here. This is a good question. Very broad, but I think we can do a good job answering it. How do I import goods from China to Dubai? And maybe the way we'll answer this is not specifically China to Dubai, but China to X, wherever you're living or wherever you're selling. What would you say to that, Lenny? How to get your products out of China's supplier's warehouse to wherever you're selling?
Yeah, so assuming that you've already found a supplier and you're sort of familiar and comfortable with the process of finding a supplier, working with them to get your shipment or to get your product made, it's actually fairly straightforward, or it certainly can be straightforward, getting your products shipped from China to your country. Generally, I'm going to group maybe two different methods. One is using a service called a freight forwarder. It's basically a shipping company that will handle all of the shipments and logistics. They'll look after all of the customs and anything logistical. They can take care of it. And so, basically looking up a freight forwarder. One resource to do that is called Freightos.com. And that's a site where you can basically put in all the details for your shipment, and it'll give you a whole bunch of quotes back from a number of different freight forwarders. The other alternative is just to ask your supplier about getting your product shipped into your country or the Amazon marketplace that you're selling in. And essentially, suppliers will typically have a partnership with their own freight forwarder that they'll use, and they can give you quotes. If you're trying to get the best price, it might be worth asking your supplier for a quote, but then also going to Freightos and getting some quotes there and finding the best price for you. One thing I'll say is if you work directly with a freight forwarder yourself, you typically have more control and a little more transparency about where your shipment is. You get probably more likely to get tracking numbers and that kind of thing. I've typically just let my supplier organize it a lot just because it's been kind of just like the easiest option. I haven't really had to deal with anything so far shipping logistics related just because I've let my supplier take care of that. The downside is that when my supplier has done that, I typically don't get tracking numbers and I don't know where the shipment is at, and there's just like a little bit less transparency there, but typically the price has been a little bit better. So there's a couple of ways to go about it. I would recommend, Jake's got up on screen a how to sell on Amazon video, and there's a whole section on shipping, and I would recommend watching through all of that. It'll give you kind of a good high-level overview of everything you need to know about shipping. There are like shipping terms, a little bit about there's a whole bunch of like little things that it's good to have a basic knowledge of. The good news is that like when you use a freight forwarder, you typically don't need to understand all of this, but I would say it's helpful to have at least a basic understanding of how shipping works and some of these terms, because you will need to make some of these decisions in terms of what Incoterm you choose. You should have an understanding of like what a customs bond is, and it's good to have some of that knowledge, but fortunately you can delegate most of that to a freight forwarder and they can like work with you to help educate you on anything you don't understand. I feel like it was a little bit of a long-winded answer, but anything you would add there?
No, you crushed it. And I realized, Lenny, I wasn't sharing my screen for the last question, and I got to go back real quick if you're still with us here. What I showed is two things. And first I was saying you should watch two videos. The first video is this one, do this to find long-tail keywords for PPC. And then slightly underneath that is this one, how to outrank your competitors using this 3-step strategy. And then I didn't show this. Again, we were talking to it, but we have a campaign. I was talking about the one-to-one campaign strategy that we do. So here's what it looks like. We have a campaign, sponsored product campaign, that's doing automatic targeting, and the targeting strategy is substitutes. And what I was showing is, if we click into the ad group here and go to targeting, we have a campaign that's only targeting one of the targeting types in this automatic campaign, which is substitutes. And we also have another campaign that's only targeting close match. But we also have one targeting loose match. And then typically you would have one targeting compliments. And so that's what I was saying and showing really of like this one-to-one campaign format is one ASIN, one targeting type per campaign. And you can see just through an example of an automatic campaign, that's how we do. But we'd also do it with the manual side of like exact match keywords have their own campaign. Phrase and broad have their own, and then sometimes certain keywords have their own campaigns as well. So apologies for not having that up here. I had to switch a setting on our streaming thing here, but hopefully you now have a visual idea of what we were talking about there.
Awesome.
Yeah, sweet. So we got another question here. I'm a new seller, and I want to understand how much budget we should put in our PPC campaign. After launching a new product, for how many days should I run PPC? I'm afraid it will finish all profit. Good question. So I'll start with the first question. How much should you allocate to your PPC budget in terms of launching your product? It really depends, but I don't want to just say that. I want to be a little more helpful for you. It depends on how much money you have left in, funds to work with, whether that's advertising or whether that's like a split between advertising and your next round of inventory. You really just got to understand that, you can invest in advertising and use all your money there, but you're going to want to save a little bit for your next round of inventory. It's okay to go out of stock when you first start, but it's not going to be easy to pay for that next round of inventory. And I say that because when you make a transaction, you don't get that money back right away. It takes up to 2 to 3 weeks to get your money back from Amazon. And that's because Amazon pays you out as a seller every 2 weeks. But when you first get started, Amazon withholds a little bit of money every 2 weeks in case you have product returns. Because as a new seller and a new product, really, you're more likely to have a product deficiency, I should say. And so Amazon knows that. Until you're able to prove to them that, hey, I don't get that many returns, they won't withhold as much money. And so I say that because you might want to have a little bit of money left over for your next set of inventory. But if you can have a stash set aside for that, and you have an advertising budget, in terms of your profitability, like how much should I spend? I wouldn't worry too much about that in the beginning. The goal of your advertising spend in the very beginning is to get you reviews. And in order to get reviews, you need to get sales. And if that comes at a loss, that's completely okay. And so if you identify that your break-even ACoS is 50%, so anything over 50%, you lose money, and you're over 50% during this launch period, that's okay. As long as it's not like 300 or 400% or whatever. But you want to essentially, in this case, pay for reviews. And once you get out of that launch phase, you'll be able to kind of dial your ad spend back and be more efficient with your ads because your listing is stronger. There's more social proof. And so when people come to your listing from an ad, your conversion rate will be higher. And so your ACoS will come down because of that. And so I say that because in the beginning, don't worry about profitability. Keep an eye on it. Don't just throw money out the window, but be okay with losing a little bit of money in the short term. But then real quick, going back to the overall question of how much money that is, it just depends on how much money you're willing to lose. And then obviously you want to make sure, like I said, you have some money left over for a next round of inventory, even if it's not the full order, but like some money to help you get there. One thing to note too is if your advertising sales cover your advertising spend, you don't actually pay that amount. You only pay the difference. So if you sold, let's say your overall sales equals 500 and that includes organic sales, but you spent $4.99, Amazon will give you $1 back. So you actually don't have to pay that. So keep that in mind. You might not actually spend all of your ad dollars. You might just not get some of that back in sales, if that makes sense. So you actually might not have to touch your advertising budget is what I'm trying to say. That's a good question. You just have to experiment and hopefully don't lose all your advertising budget. But if you do, like I said, that's okay because you're trying to get reviews. Awesome. Next question here. I need help. My past product launch, Amazon UAE. Yeah, I mean, feel free to add any more context. What exactly do you need help with? We'd love to give a good answer rather than it's like an overarching answer of how to do product research. But feel free if you're still here to ask us any.
Yeah, give us some more context on that. What if you've I need help with my.
Yeah, what are you struggling with?
Have you already done a product launch, or you are planning one? And what specifically are you needing help with?
Awesome. Okay, next question here. Does high impression convert more sales? After 6 hours, I'm out of budget. Please tell the rule of fixing budget / daily for running campaigns. So I think there's two questions wrapped up into one there. So maybe that first question is high impression convert to more sales?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, yeah. It could be irrelevant impressions. So
high impressions just means a lot of people have seen it.
Right.
But that's whether you get sales or not is very separate to that. It's like, is it are they clicking on it and then buying it? That's
right.
Yeah, so
the clicks is what you're going to be spending on. So like, I mean, it makes sense. In order to get more sales, you need more people to see your product in order to like be able to purchase it. But there is such thing as bad impressions, and Amazon will figure that out too. Like if you're spending money on ads and Amazon's serving it to a bunch of people, but your click-through rate is really, really poor, they're going to not serve it as much to that audience or for those keywords until you prove that you kind of, you do convert on those keywords, which just takes ad spend. But I wouldn't say in order to get more sales, you need more impressions. You just need better impressions. And that's why we talk a lot about long tail keywords. There are definitely keywords out there that when a customer searches for it, it's like a high intent purchase. And a good example of that is a coffee maker. If I type in right now on Amazon, let's say I need a new coffee maker, I just type in coffee maker. Well, there's a lot of different coffee makers. There's single serve coffee makers. There's like K-cups. There's espressos, there's drip coffee makers, there's ones with grinders on it. There's a whole bunch of coffee makers that I could be up for grabs for. But if I were to type in, let's say, what's a good one? Like a K-cup coffee maker. Well, now I know exactly what I'm looking for, and I'm more likely to click on one of the products that are actually K-cups in the search result. So I guess that to say you want to make sure that your keywords are relevant, and even if that means lower impressions, it could mean more sales.
Yeah. But generally, like, generally, like, high impressions is a good thing. It's definitely better than low impressions. I think we were answering a question last week where someone had very low impressions or no impressions. So high impressions is really good. I think the next probably, like, as long as they're relevant keywords, like Jake said, your next thing is to really be looking at the click-through rate and then the conversion rate. So of all the people that are seeing your product, how many are clicking through? And so click-through rate, that's going to have a lot to do with your main image, your title, and price point to kind of get them, and who your competitors are. Is your listing more compelling than all the others on the page? So you want to optimize those main things to help improve your click-through rate, and then pretty much your entire listing is what's going to contribute to your conversion rate. So yeah, I think if you've got high impressions, that's a great first start. Now really sort of dialing click-through rate and conversion rate.
To answer your other question, I kind of wanted to show you something here. So you asked, let me go back so I can pull it up here. Please, I'm out after 6 hours. I'm out of budget, so I assume the first 6 hours of the day you're out of budget already, and you're now like, okay, should I do something else to make sure I'm in budget all throughout the day? A good way to find that out is there's actually a report that you can pull, and if you go over here to measurement and reporting, and you click sponsored ads report, you can download a sponsored products report and a campaign report. Just make sure you select your country, obviously you're advertising in, and then click hourly. The farthest it can go back is 14 days, but it's still a lot of data. And once you click run report up here, it's going to download a report that I actually already have somewhere. I can try to pull up real quick. I just actually pulled it up yesterday. I don't know why I was doing this, but what it will do is you'll see like hours of the day start time here. I actually added in day of the week. I just manually wrote in when these days were. But it gives you the day of the week and the time and all your metrics over here. And so you can run a pivot table. I kind of did one earlier. This is just day of the week, but you could do this with hours of the day as well. And essentially what I'm trying to say is you can figure out when you're more profitable throughout the day. And if you're running out of budget, early on, you might not even have data past like noon or whatever time it would be after 6 hours. But what you can do in Amazon is once you figure out, whether you want to spend more throughout the day or you want to spend during certain hours, there's a couple of rules that you can apply. And this is really helpful for everybody. I actually have experimented too much with this on Amazon. We have an enterprise tool at Jungle Scout called Cobalt that does this, but it's for like really big brands. So it's usually out of the price range for a lot of people, but you can add a budget rule here. And what this is going to do is you can run it based on a schedule or performance. And schedule is like, hey, I'm going to tell Amazon, you could do like custom events that Amazon knows has high traffic, or you can just do a custom date range. And so for here, I would just like start it today and not have any date range. And then you could say, hey, run it all day or increase it. But what you're trying to do is say, start my budget at like 4 a.m. when people are really shopping and end it at this time. And then like increase the budget at that point. So like you might still spend during these couple hours, but your budget will be increased at these hours. So that's one way that you can spend more during hours that you know are going to be, more shoppers are buying, but it doesn't actually stop you from purchasing during those hours. Amazon doesn't have that as a capability. You'd have to manually like kind of go in every day and turn your bids down. Amazon only has functionality to turn things up. And so that's a budget rule. I believe they have bidding rules too. So in campaign settings, you can come down here to your bidding strategy and you can add a bidding rule, which is the same thing. You can choose during certain times of the day that you can adjust your bids. What we were just showing was budgets, but you can do the same thing with bids here. I guess this isn't as helpful because like it's still not going to help you run out of budget. It's going to make you spend more during certain times. But you could, if you wanted to, turn your campaigns to down only. That could be helpful. And then you mentioned like, should I do daily budgets? I think daily budgets are still the best way of going about it. Because the other way is you can add like, I think it's like somewhere in settings. No, it's not here. It's like somewhere else where you can add like, instead of a daily budget, you do, oh gosh, I can't remember where it's at. Like basically like, I'm only going to spend this much this month or whatever. I have to remember where that's at. But yeah, you could do that. I just wouldn't recommend it because you could spend all that money in one day. But hopefully that helps you a little bit understanding like when you like how you perform during certain hours a day with that report, and then what you can do to increase your spend at certain times. Otherwise, you'd have to kind of manually go in each day, which you could do. You could set your budget to like $5, and then every day around like noon or 9 a.m. or something, you turn it up to like $50. And so your budget will cap really early, but then it won't start spending until you increase your budget. That's a manual way of going about it that could work for you. Not the most efficient, though, I will say. Got a question here, two-parter. Wholesale product best research. And also, does your past video on product wholesale hunting, is it good for 2024? Yeah, it's absolutely good for 2024. So if you just type in a shortcut, wholesale on our channel here, you'll see a couple of videos. You'll see how to find suppliers, our older video of like the whole strategy. But then this one's relatively recent with Brian. He's a member, he works at Jungle Scout and he does wholesale himself. All of these videos are still relevant. Nothing has changed in the way that we are teaching wholesale and product research. So I'd still recommend watching these videos. They'll give you far better insights and real examples than what we can just high level here on this call.
Right.
But they're still relevant today. There's nothing new that's changed that would outdate these strategies. Yeah, great question. Okay. I've been into e-commerce for about 4 years now, and I want to get into Amazon FBA following my business failing. Am I too late to start on Amazon? What categories are currently in demand?
Let's see how to break. So you've been into e-commerce for about 4 years now. I'd love to learn more about what you've been doing, whether you've been selling like on Etsy or Shopify, and how you've been doing it. Because that context would probably, just knowing that you've been doing e-commerce for 4 years, I think would give you a competitive advantage. Obviously, platforms do have differences, but if you're already quite familiar with e-commerce, then most likely you've got experience creating products and knowing how to get them made and shipped and the logistics, and like you've probably got a step up from someone that's never done e-commerce before.
Right.
And so then your question is
it too late to start?
Is it too late to start? No, I don't think it's ever too late to start. Honestly, it's definitely more competitive today than it was a year ago and a year before that. Like, it's always going to get more competitive, and there's more competitors, but then there's always like more tools and things that you can utilize that make it easier to get started. So there's always like advantages that come in as well as competition. If you take a really big step back, ultimately still though, the demand I think is still higher than, supply. Have I got that around the right way? Like there's still a need for sellers selling products.
Yes.
So it's not too late to get started. One thing I would say though, that actually Jake and I were talking about this off camera just earlier, but I do believe that you need to be passionate about what you're doing. Ideally, even the product or products that you're selling. If you're just wanting a side hustle and just wanting to sell something online, Amazon can be, quite competitive. It does take a lot of capital up front. You could be better off looking at selling digital products or other ways of making money online. But if you're, in love with selling a particular product, or you want to start a specific brand, and you're really passionate about that, and that involves a physical product, then Amazon is absolutely the way to go. And, you certainly still can win on Amazon. It's just going to take a lot of, takes dedication and work to make that happen. Where am I going with that? I think that's where I was going with that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else to kind of add there.
I think you nailed it. It's definitely not too late. I mean, the biggest takeaway from that actually would just be there's always going to be, on Amazon at least, more people buying and wanting more options than there are going to be than sellers. Like, there's always going to be more consumers than sellers. So it's not too late to get started. So a lot of people would even say that about like blogging right now. Is it too late to get started blogging? Blogging went crazy a couple years ago, or like a couple decades ago even, but it's still making people into millionaires. So it's more so like where the demand is and following that, and the demand is still on Amazon overwhelmingly.
Yeah, maybe to kind of like sum up actually what I was saying is I think there's a lot of opportunity if you're willing to create and grow a brand on Amazon. I wouldn't recommend it if you're just wanting to launch a product or random products without building the brand, because I think it's become very apparent that it's how important it is to build a brand on Amazon in order to succeed. So if that's what you're looking to do, then I would say absolutely.
And real quick, I'm going through and just like highlighting the questions or starring them so we can get to them. And this is a good question I wanted to add here. You kind of brought it up. In the same vein, is Amazon still worth it if you have no intention of improving the listing or product and you just want to do it passively?
Yeah, I think my instant reaction is no. It's not worth it. You could definitely do that a few years ago, and it's just become harder and harder. There's probably some really random examples where maybe that could still work, but by and far, no. It's there's a certain level, like if you're cheap, I think if your intention, again, getting in, and this is maybe like helping me refine my point, if your intention is to get into making passive income, then I wouldn't do this, because there's a lot of hard work involved. And what I wouldn't say it's passive income, I would say it's scalable, meaning there's a certain level of it being passive when you get to a certain point. Right. Like you do a lot of work up front to launch a product, and then it eases off. And you still need to do, like, even just to maintain a product, you'd still need to do at least like a few hours per week.
Yeah.
But at that point, it's like more scalable, where the sort of dollars that you earn per hour goes up. And so it's like it's somewhat passive, but you're always going to still need to be kind of like checking in. And if you want to grow it and not, you can't just step away completely, because other competitors will come in and beat you. Yeah. You're always going to want to continue growing.
Putting money back into the business.
Yeah, actually something from our recent Amazon Seller Week that I think Greg was talking about that I think is quite interesting is he said he's always had this realization that products on Amazon typically have like a shelf life, and it'll depend on the product and the market, but it might be 2 years or 3 years or maybe even 5 years. But there's always probably going to be a certain point where a product is going to start to diminish in sales. So it's like, I don't think, and especially today, you're not just going to be able to put a product up and for the rest of your life, you're just going to like cash a check every month. It's like it might last for a period of time, but it's like you're always wanting to be, looking at launching new products, finding new ones that you can launch, and expanding your product line. That's why I was talking about building a brand earlier. So yeah, it's definitely not a complete passive income business, but it's definitely a very scalable one where you can make really good money relative to the hours that you put in, but you do need to put in those hours.
Yeah. Great question, and we might bring it up again here depending on what else pops up. But let's get to the next question. Sorry, give me a second here. How do I get keywords from automatic campaign into manual? Yeah, I mean, there's really just one way of doing it. Amazon's tried to make it easier. Let me actually go to a different campaign to show, but it's relatively easy. We don't have too many campaigns running right now. We're pulling back because we have low inventory. Maybe this one might work, but if we just go to our search term report, the best way is honestly just going to be copying. It stinks, but then like having a notepad out, like a one of your MacBook's notepad or anything, and then copying over ASINs that way. But there's some bit of new functionality in manual campaigns. I don't know if it's actually branched out to every seller yet, and I don't even know if we have it, but they have it in search term reports. Yeah, where you can like add from here as a keyword into this campaign, and I think you can actually do it in different campaigns as well, or you can even add as a negative keyword. But this is relatively new. You can actually just like add anything that comes up into your search report into your targeting. But so far, it looks like for automatic campaigns, you can only copy and paste. So unfortunately, that's the only way to do it for now. Yeah, what we recommend is you want to give the data, you want to have enough data before you make a decision. And on Amazon, the average conversion rate is around 10%. So if in theory, if you get 10 clicks and you only have one sale, that would be 10%. But if you get 10 clicks and 0 sales, then you're under that average conversion rate. And that would be a signal to add it as a negative keyword. But I don't like to use 10 clicks because I don't think it's that much data. I like to at least do 20. After 20 clicks, if I don't get at least 2 sales, which would be 10% of conversion rate, I add it as a negative keyword. And anything that's more than 2 sales out of 20 clicks, so over 10% conversion rate, I add it into a manual campaign.
What would happen if it was like 20 clicks and only 1 sale? Would you be on the fence, or would you be like, no, that doesn't?
It really depends on the
count.
keywords too. Like especially early on, you're going to see a lot of that. Like if you're just launching your product, you don't have any reviews or very little reviews. I don't trust the data that much, because if I were going to buy a product and I click on the listing and it only has 1 review, I might not buy it, but that might have been a relevant keyword still. So it really just depends on the keyword. If it's a wild keyword that, like, if you just search for it on Amazon and you don't see products like yours, or the products are completely out of your price range, then I would negate it. But I tend to give data. I tend to give it a little more data to make because once you negate it, you're never going to bid on that again, at least in the automatic campaign.
Would you also want to? Would it also kind of depend on the context of, are there other keywords with similar amounts of clicks that do have sales? So what I'm just like kind of thinking through right now is if you've got 10 keywords, they've all had 20 clicks and they've all had 0 sales, you could negate all of those based off of that rule. But if I saw that as a pattern, I would actually be more like, oh, I don't think the individual, well, maybe all of the keywords are the problem, or maybe the actual listing is the problem.
Yeah.
Versus if like, okay, I can see 7 or 8 keywords that have 20 clicks and they've got, 5, 6 sales, but this one keyword has only 1, then it's like, okay, that's definitely the keyword that's the problem.
Right.
Because I can see that these other keywords are working, but if none of them are working, or then maybe it's like not the keyword and maybe it's the product.
Well, maybe to show that example, like in this campaign, we're literally only advertising washable pee pads for dogs. That's why there's only 1 keyword in this search term report. But the key term here is washable. There are people that sell reusable pee pads, disposable pee pads, and they're not washable. So if we're saying, hey, we have washable pee pads for dogs, and we're bidding on that, but our listing doesn't show that it's washable. So obviously we do have in the title, that's nice. But like we actually have a direct image, right here, that calls out that it's waterproof and it won't link through the mat. And we even have in our video, it's like one of the first call outs. I think right here, waterproof and leak proof. So if we're not calling that out as a feature, you're right. There might be somebody that uses that keyword, comes to our listing and go, oh, it's not waterproof. And then it's like, well, we just lost a sale because our keyword wasn't matching the intent of the buyer. So
yeah,
that's definitely something to consider when choosing your keywords, is relevancy to your product. And then making sure your listing actually backs up your keywords.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Good question. Okay. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, if I ship my product in a box with 10 sellable items, Amazon will have to prep and pack each item to the customer, incurring a fee. So basically, yeah, you have like a master carton, you put your products in there, 10 of them, let's say, but they're sold individually. When you send it to Amazon, you have to pay Amazon to take it out and put it into separate boxes.
You can get Amazon to do certain types of prep. I think that's maybe more for like specific
I think that's an option.
categories. Yeah. Typically though you don't want that. Typically
Right.
it's hard to tell exactly what the context is here, but what I will say is you need to send in your units the way that they're going to get shipped out to customers. Like Amazon's not going to create your packaging for you. Like if I'm selling this mug, I can't just put 10 of these literally in a box and like send it into Amazon, and Amazon's going to take this mug out and put it in a box. You have to kind of sell it ready to ship out to customers. And typically what Amazon can do is you can get Amazon to put the FNSKU label on there that they need. And you can pay 20 or 30 cents and Amazon will put those labels on. But like a pro tip there is to get your supplier or do it yourself, and that's going to be a lot cheaper and save you money. But yeah, that's the one distinction I'd make, is that you have to put those 10 units, they all need to be ready to ship out to the customer.
I was trying to show it here. Amazon is giving me it's going really slow, but what you could do is like, who labels units?
Yeah, you're trying to like edit that so you can see the options.
I already selected it, that's why I won't. But like, who preps the units? So, no prep needed, but then, where is it? Use manufacturer barcode. It's been a while since we've had to do that, but there is an option. I don't know where that is now. It's probably in here. I don't know if it's in here at packing line. No, I forget. There is an option to have Amazon do the prep in terms of not just label putting on, but actually taking it out of your master carton and putting it into individual boxes. But that is an additional cost per unit.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that.
You want your supplier to do that.
Yeah, I guess I've never done that. I haven't really heard of like many people utilizing that, like because the packaging and so forth is all part of the experience for the customer, and you want to control that, and so I think it would be a lot more expensive to get Amazon to do that than to just get your supplier to do that for you.
I don't know where it is. I always thought it was here, but then
I think it is there, except
it is, but like I can't scroll up. Like it's weird. Sometimes like an incognito window will help here.
But I think that's also dependent on like the category. I think like the options change based off of the category or type of product that you choose.
And it might have been like past this. It used to be the second step, but now it's just pretend like we're gonna send it in real quick. No, I'm not going to do that. But typically, like, it should be like here on like the box labels. There might be an option here to do that. I'm going to delete this workflow.
Because I thought it was only for very specific scenarios, like in that menu there, where it's like a sharp item, or it's like a like a baby product, or it's like very specific things. I didn't think it was like you could send in any product and they'll do it.
Okay, maybe that's the case. Yeah, we actually haven't done that, but it's a good question. Yeah, either way, I think the answer is get your supplier to do it. It'll be a lot cheaper and easier. Cool. Another question here. However, if I have a box for each, it's a follow-up. If I have a box for each unit separately, do you still have to pay the prep and pack fee, or just to pay the shipping fee? I think we already answered that. Your supplier would do it at hopefully no cost.
Yeah, I suppose. I guess we're getting into the technicalities of the fees. So you still pay a fee that's part of your FBA fee. So there's the pick and pack fee, and then the referral fee, which is just a percentage of the sales price. So yes, everyone utilizing FBA will pay the FBA fees. But the specific prep fee that we were just kind of talking about, you wouldn't pay. That's like an additional one.
Okay. Let's see here. Cool. So finding a long tail keyword from brand analytics from Seller Central account, but I'm not getting the option. So we mentioned this in one of our videos, and in fact, I think it was that video that I was recommending to watch. Is I think I have it here. Is do this to find long tail keywords, and one of the options, as you actually see in that video playback, is to go into brand analytics to get some keywords. This is just one place to get keywords. Jungle Scout has a keyword research tool as well, but it's good to get keywords from a bunch of sources. So in that video, I include 3 different sources: your search term report, like I've showed in advertising, the search query performance report, and then Jungle Scout. So in this one, if you're not seeing the option, and maybe because one you just can't find it because Amazon has moved it before, and they've also added things to make it bigger and better, but it's under brands and brand analytics. A quick note here: you will have to be brand registered within Amazon to get this brand tab here, and that means you have a trademark and you filed that through Amazon, or Amazon knows that you have it, so they awarded you what's called brand registry, a program that gives you basically this brand tab and then some other functionality.
I'd say that's probably the reason. If you're saying that you're not getting that option of brand analytics, I'm assuming that you're probably not brand registered then.
And then just real quick, when you do get there, it will pop up here, but it's under search analytics, and you'll see the query performance. This is going to be looking at either your brands, or what I like to do is the ASIN view, and then you click your product. So our product is here. I like to get the largest date range I possibly can, so that's quarterly, the most recent quarter, which is Q1 of this year. Click apply, and then here you'll see a list of, I think it's only 100 keywords they give out. Like if I go view all, it's like 100 or something. It could even be less than that, but then you can actually just generate the download from here and download it to an Excel sheet. But this is a good way of finding keywords within Jungle Scout that people have used to find your product on Amazon. You see a bunch of cool data here, but I would probably just either sort it by search volume or search query score, which I think counts like relevancy into it as well. Like, how many people are looking for your products on Amazon?
That's awesome.
But it's a good tab to explore, and I'm sure there's a lot of good helpful articles and videos on YouTube that dive more into this if you want to learn more about that report specifically. Cool. So I got a question here. This is a good one. I can't ship with AGL since my factory isn't in China, which is a requirement, but can I still use AWD, which is Amazon's 3PL service that auto replenishes your inventory into Amazon, so that you don't have to go grab a 3PL separately and send it in?
I don't know for sure, but I think the answer would be yes.
I think that's what we do right now, or what we have done, right?
Well, we've been able to send in inventory to AWD without AGL
through our suppliers, freight forwarder. Yeah,
our product is coming from China, but I don't think that matters. It's just at the end of the day, as long as we're sending it to the AWD address. So I think that the answer would be yes. There are some other requirements for AWD, which is it's not oversized, but as long as it's eligible for AWD, then I'm pretty sure you should be able to.
So actually, back on the Send to Amazon page, if you actually click here, it's basically AWD, Amazon Distribution Center shipments. You can see all the shipments here, but if I go to create a shipment, let's see, let me start new. I believe there should be something up here, ship from, and then I'll have to look into this more. I feel like you can, because that's how we've done it, but maybe it's a different way of doing that. I forget where it is, but the AWD inventory. Well, you wouldn't have this if you didn't have any inventory there. I'll have to circle back on this, because I thought there was maybe a different thing here, like send to Amazon, but there should be like a send to AWD. Yeah, good question. The answer, you can, because we've done it, but I can't remember exactly how to do that. So, yeah. Sorry, we can't show that. Something I'll have to check out after this. Cool. Vince is asking, if I'm introducing a new product with some really unique design features and making the product more functional, do you recommend a patent? I'm worried about copycats. That's a great question. What do you think about someone that's really improving the product and locking that down with a patent, whether it's design or utility.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really serious about this product
Yeah.
and you've got the money and the means to, and you do think you've made a significant improvement, then yes, I think that's a great idea. It's definitely going to be helpful in creating a moat around your product and making it more defensible. And just actually, those words came to mind from a recent webinar we did with Brandon Young from DataDive, and he was talking about this exact same thing, about these are all the different ways that you can make your product more defensible and kind of hold off the competition, and getting a design patent is or any sort of patent on it is definitely one of those things that you can do. So yeah, if you're able to have the means, then I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yes. I think you covered it all there. That's a good way of thinking about it, especially if you're like passionate about it. If you have the funds, that's probably the most important part of that question. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm trying to get back to the questions. How long does product research usually take? I'm currently using Jungle Scout to help, but it feels like I'm getting analysis paralysis with this. Okay. And it's been 1 week and I still can't manage to find one product to tackle. Well, one week is
not much.
Yeah, not much. So I think you're doing just fine.
Yeah.
It took me personally months. I will say that wasn't every day spending hours on it. It was casually kind of doing product research, maybe an hour a day. Maybe some days I take off and do 2 hours the next day. And then once I kind of got some traction, like I found an idea, then I would spend like maybe 2 hours a day and I would kind of do it every day. But it took me months to find my product. So I don't think you need to be in any rush right now. Maybe you have something else though to add.
Yeah, it's not really something where there's like a specific timeline that you can kind of like nail down.
Yeah.
If you're fairly urgently going like, I want to do this and I want to make something happen and I'm going to commit like an hour a day or something to be making this happen, and I got a little bit extra time on the weekend, might have at least 2 or 3 hours over Saturday and Sunday to do it. I would say you should be able to like find something inside of a month if you're, really pushing to do this. There's not like a certain amount of hours that you need to do. It's just more, I'm trying to think when I've done it before. It's, let's see. For me, it's always been like I do an hour or two of product research here and there. I come up with a couple of ideas. You sort of go down some different rabbit holes like, oh, this is an interesting idea. So now I go over to Alibaba and I'm like looking at like, oh, roughly how much can I get this product for? And I'm like looking at other listings on Amazon. And then I start thinking about like, oh, what photos could I take, or what keywords could I bid on? And I'm starting to look at all of these different things, and I kind of get to a certain point of like, oh, maybe not. And then I move on to like trying to find some other product ideas. And typically I might come up with a couple each session that sort of okay, but then there is sort of value, I think, in doing a session and then just going away, living life, and just sort of, it's in the back of your mind, you're thinking about it more, and as you're thinking about it more, it either seems to become a better idea or not as good of an idea, and then you're over time starting to build up some more product ideas that you're considering, and now you've got points of reference to like this first one. It seems like it could be okay, but until you have more points of reference, it's hard to pull the trigger on the idea that you're maybe liking so far. Yeah, so it can definitely take weeks or even months for sure. I mean, it is entirely possible that you could sit down for like 2 hours and do product research and find a killer product. It's not unheard of, but it's probably quite rare. I would say it would be at least a few weeks for most people. Depending on how much time you want to invest. I suppose I would say, if I was like really serious, I'm like, okay, I really want to launch a product. I'm going to commit some time to it each day. My goal would probably be to like not spend more than a month or so on it. But if it's something that's not as urgent, then yeah, take your time. You definitely don't want to like launch a product that you're not 100% sure on, or that the profitability is not great. So when I say like, oh, maybe you could do this in under a month, I don't mean sell something in a month, no matter what, even if it's not, profitable or high in demand. But yeah, I guess it's just like it's a very hard thing to put a timeline on. But certainly, if you've just been doing this for a week, then yeah, that is completely normal. People do not typically just find something in under a week, usually. So what you're doing right now is definitely not out of the norm.
Yeah. Awesome. Just jumping around here. Make sure we're going to get to all the questions before we wrap up, which we will be wrapping up here shortly, but feel free to drop all your questions down below. And then if you're watching this in the replay, drop all your questions in the comment section. Hopefully next week we'll get back to our pre-submitted questions, or at least bring in a couple into there. But I'm glad, because we had a lot of questions, and unfortunately I don't think we'll get to all of them, but we'll get to a few more here before we take off. But this next question are, what are the best agencies for photography, for A+ content, for any infographics? There actually is a way in Seller Central to find Amazon partnered agencies that can help you with this. And so I have the page up here, but to get here, you go to your sidebar navigation and you go down to apps and services, and then explore services. From here, let's take you to this page. You just got to say where you're located, where you want to sell, and then what service you want. But what I think you're looking for is imaging here, and then click search. And that's going to go through a database here and basically give you back a lot of companies that Amazon has partnered with. Now, it's not to say that they're the best companies, so you still want to do your own due diligence and go through, reach out to them. But it gives you a start. And sometimes there may not be, these might be like mixed with different types of companies. So you could do, you could narrow it down even more. Like, I'd probably want somebody in the United States, for example, that speaks English. Like for us, at least, that would make it easier for us to work with them. And so I can use these filters to narrow down. But this is a good way of reaching out to them. You can contact provider from here, say what you're looking for, and then it goes to like Amazon, essentially. You'll get emails sent through to and from with Amazon. That's one way of doing it. Obviously, good old Google would work as well, but you want to make sure it's specific to Amazon. There's definitely companies out there that can do product photography, but they may not focus in Amazon. But I've always found that's a better angle, because they know kind of the psychology of like why people click on Amazon in the search results. So I've always done like Amazon product photography, and look for companies there, in maybe your country even. But you'll find, typically scrolling past these ads, I've actually used AMZ One Step. I will say they did some awesome photos for me, so I can vouch for them if you want to reach out to them. They're not the cheapest though, I will say that. But there are some other as well. I've heard of Kenji ROI, but yeah, mix of Google and then Amazon's partnered service portal would be helpful for you, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, hey guys, I'm in the process of searching for products for a private label, and I'm also waiting on receiving my LLC. What would be the best time for trademark, I assume, is for getting the trademark, according to you guys, or to apply for trademark, I assume is what you're saying. So you're getting the LLC to form your business, but you want to figure out when should you get a trademark, which is a bigger decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it's sort of budget dependent. It's what we typically say is that you don't absolutely have to start out with a trademark and therefore brand registry. However, if you do have the funds available, it's probably the easiest, and it'll give you the best launch and the best the best product launch possible. But it will be, let's say, roughly an extra $1,000 on top of all of your other expenses. So if you have that available, then I'd recommend doing it from the beginning, so that you've got brand registry from the beginning. When you launch your product, you can have nice, beautiful A+ content and all of the benefits that brand registry unlocks. However, if you don't have that available, then you don't have to start out with the trademark and brand registry. You can do that at some point once you've already started selling. So yeah, I suppose the best time is when you first start. The next best time is just as soon as you can afford to. There's not like a specific time, like, okay, 1 month in or 3 months in or anything like that. It's just whenever you have the funds and it's available to you. I would say it's a question of when and not if. I don't think there's really any question. I don't know if you've got any differing opinions, but I don't think there's any question about whether or not you should get it. I think every brand or every brand or seller that's serious on Amazon just needs to have brand registry today, I believe. But just do it as soon as it's accessible for you.
Yes, and just to add to that, I'm going to answer 2 questions here because there actually was one earlier asking like, can we change our brand name on Amazon once we've added it to our listing?
Yeah.
And this is relevant here because I made this earlier a couple weeks ago for a live Q&A, but there's 3 ways that you can add your brand on Amazon. And this is still relevant for this question being asked, so that's why I'm bringing it up here. The first one is trademarking, and that's where you get brand registry. So you get a trademark for your brand name, whether it's something specific like, Jake's Dog Products, or it's something very broad like, I don't know, Jake LLC, which allows me to sell anything. That basically gives you all the access to the advanced features, but also like when you add that to you create a listing with brand registry, you don't got to worry about anything. Now, these other 2 ways to launch products, it's good to know. So I'll start here with generic. Generic is when you sign up, when you create your listing, you check a box and you say, Amazon, I don't have a brand name, so I'm just going to sell into generic. And they'll let you do that. But what's really interesting to know is every time when you put in a brand name for the first time in the listing, so when you're creating a listing, you add a brand name, once you save it, that's locked forever. And when you click generic and you're going to sell a generic brand, you're now forever a generic brand. The only way to add a brand name to it, whether it's a trademark brand name or an unregistered brand name, is to create a new listing. And so that's why generic brand names aren't the best. Instead, you'd rather do an unregistered brand. So if you're not going to get a trademark right away, whether you don't have the funds for it or you're just not sure you want to, it could be expensive. So maybe you just don't want to commit to it right away. You can register an unregistered brand on Amazon. And what that allows you to do is add a fake brand name to your product. So let's say you want to use a brand name. I'm just going to go back to it, Jake's Dog Products. But you don't want to trademark yet because, again, you don't know whether you actually want to long-term do that. You can put it on your product or on the packaging. And obviously, as long as that brand name isn't taken already, so you have to make sure that's not like a brand name that any other company uses. You can actually add that as an unregistered brand on Amazon. So you basically just tell Amazon, hey, here are some photos of my product with the brand name on it. It's not trademarked, but I am using it. And they'll allow you to run with that brand on Amazon. And then later, when you trademark it, all you have to do is submit that information to Amazon. Say, hey, I actually trademarked my brand name. Can I get brand registry? And then they'll unlock brand registry for you. So that's what you should know is like you don't have to get a trademark brand right now, but just make sure you register or you do an unregistered brand and use that name that you later will get brand registry for. Otherwise, you got to create a whole new listing. Hopefully that makes sense. Once you add once you add your brand name to your listing, it's locked. And so you can't change it. And the only way to get brand registry would be either to create a new listing and add that, or if you do an unregistered brand, just to tell Amazon that you did register your brand name.
Makes sense.
Yeah. All right, but I think that's going to wrap up our questions. We're a little over the hour now, but hopefully you guys got a ton of value from this live Q&A. If so, let us know by hitting the like button down below. And if we didn't answer your question, go ahead and drop it in the comments below, and we'll carry that over into next week's video. But until then, we hope you have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you next Thursday.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.